Hi guys! Did you ever wanted to have a good size gaming pad? Did you know that you can make one very easily while not spending a fortune? If yes, then this is for you. You want to know more? Then stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Rui and this is the Rui Raptor YouTube channel. If you want to help us out, you can by giving this video a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also help by joining our Patreon page or by clicking on any of the affiliate links posted below in the video description. So, in this video, we will show you how you can easily build a cool gaming pad. This pad has an 11.6-inch display, stereo speakers, a couple of joysticks, and 10 buttons. It also has a few buttons to control the sound volume and display settings. The enclosure is fully 3D printed, so you can choose your favorite color and print all the parts. All the STL files, list of components, and links for the parts are available on Cults. So check the video description for the link. The display used in this project is the Elecrow 11.6-inch CrowVision display. This model is also touch sensitive and it comes with the power supply and most of the cables that will be needed for this project. At the back, we can see the board that controls the display, and there's a spare area that we can use to install a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi will be installed on these 3 spacers. However, if you want to use a cooling fan to cool down your Raspberry Pi, then you need to replace these 6mm spacers with 3mm spacers. You can use a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4 for this project. In our case, we use the Raspberry Pi 3B. The orientation of the Raspberry Pi needs to be with the USB ports facing the side edge of the display. To connect all the buttons and joysticks to the Raspberry Pi, we need to use this controller board. The 2 joysticks are also included with the board. These joysticks are analog and have a button that can be toggled when pressing the joystick. As for the buttons, we used these ones. These are very sensitive, which makes them perfect for a gaming pad. Also, there are several colors we can choose from. For sound, we use these speakers from Adafruit. They have a nice sound quality and a good price. The downside is that the connector is not compatible with the display's board connector, so we need to buy the matching female connector. The power supply from the display will power all the electronics, and for that reason, we need to make an extension using a DC male panel connector and a 90 degrees female connector. We also used a USB connector in case we wanted to connect a second controller for a second player. If you need a fan to cool down your Raspberry Pi, use one of these 30x30mm and 5 volts. Some zip tie holders and zip ties will help to organize all the wires and cables inside the gamepad. Okay, let's start with the assembly. Most of the gamepad parts measure 400 by 200 millimeters, which means that they are too big for the majority of the hobby 3D printers. So these parts have been split in half and can be printed on printers with areas of 200 millimeters and above. Once you have all the 3D printed parts ready, start with the back enclosure ones. They are secured to each other with a couple of small parts and M3x8 screws from the top. And a couple more with M3x10 screws from the side. The enclosure parts should be aligned and secure. Next is the display control board. Connect the flat cable to it and place the printed caps on the buttons. And then attach the board to the enclosure. Use 3 M3x6 screws to secure it. Make sure the buttons are all working correctly after tightening all the screws. Next are the speakers. Use 3 self-tapping screws on each speaker to secure them. As for the connector, we cut the wires from the speakers and soldered the wires from the small connector to them. This is the power extension cable that we had to make by soldering the wires between each connector. This 90 degrees connector is perfect for this project because it can be easily taken out, so we can pass the cable through the enclosure and install it back without removing the wires. The nut secures the panel connector from the inside. Next are the 2 joysticks. They need to be installed with this orientation. 4 self-tapping screws secure each joystick to the enclosure. The USB extension is installed next, passing the cable from the outside in. The red and black connectors are used for the buttons. Make sure that both terminals are connected and secured correctly. Do the same for all the buttons. Start by installing the 2 buttons on the enclosure. And then the 8 buttons on the top cover parts. You might need to bend the terminals a bit so they can fit inside the enclosure. Make sure you bend all the terminals to the same side. Next, attach the first top cover and secure it with self-tapping screws. Do the same for the second top cover. This cover has an additional secure point which uses an M3x4 screw. Next, take the display with the Raspberry Pi already on it and attach it to the top covers. Make sure to install it with this orientation. From the bottom side, use 4 M2.5x16 screws to secure the display. Now, take the controller board base and attach the controller board on it. Use 4 M3x5 screws to secure it. Get some double-side tape and use it to secure the controller board to the back of the display like this. Okay, now it's time to connect everything. Start by connecting the USB extension cable to the Raspberry Pi. Then, connect the flat cable from the display buttons to the display board. And then, the speaker cable. Connect the power cable to the display board as well. Following the display manual, connect the USB-A to micro B cable between the display board and the Raspberry Pi. This is the touch feature. If you don't want to use it, you don't need to connect this one. The most important ones are the HDMI cable and the power cable. The power supply from the display board will power the display and also the Raspberry Pi as well. And then connect the controller board to the Raspberry Pi. Since the USB cable that came with the controller board was too long, we got this blue one instead, which is smaller and easier to arrange inside the enclosure. Now, what's left are the buttons and the joysticks. One thing we noticed on our controller board was that the pinout from the top side did not match the labels on the back side. And from what we could see, the back side labels were the correct ones, so we can connect to any slot except this group here and the volt power ones. It does not matter which button connects to which connector because we can map and select each one later on. So Connect all the buttons to any of these connectors. The joystick's 4-pin cable will connect here. The 2-pin connectors from the joysticks can be connected to either one from here as well. Okay, this is how our setup looks like. There is still one USB port left on the Raspberry Pi. This can be used to connect a flash drive in case you prefer to have the operating system on a flash drive instead of the micro SD card. With everything connected, we can now close the backside with the covers and M2x8 screws. On the Raspberry side cover, you can attach a cooling fan. The fan needs to be connected to the header pins on the Raspberry Pi, on the pins marked as 5 volts and ground. The last one is the small cover. Again, use the M2x8 screws. Also at the back, place some rubber feet inside the circles on the back enclosures. We use these 12 by 4 mm rubber feet and work great. Last but not least, get a bit of clear PLA filament. Cut a 9 mm bit and insert it on the small hole next to the power button. The filament will be lit whenever the power is on. And that's it. The gamepad is assembled. Now you need to install the operating system and install your games. If you don't know how to do this part, there are plenty of videos on YouTube that teach how to install software and games on the Raspberry Pi, such as RetroPie, RetroArch, Recalbox, Batocera, DOSBox, etc. One of the easiest way to start might be with the official Raspberry Pi tool, the Raspberry Pi Imager. After downloading and installing it, open the software and select your Raspberry Pi. In our case, it's the Raspberry Pi 3B. Then, for the operating system, enter the emulation and game operating system. In there, you have 3 different ones you can choose from. Let's choose the Recalbox emulator and the one for our Raspberry Pi 3. All we have to do now is select our memory card and start the process. A few minutes later, you will have your emulator ready for your gamepad. Recalbox is a great option because it also includes several legal games ready to play. Also, don't forget to visit the Recalbox wiki page for some links of where to find 100% legal games for your gamepad. Once you get the software installed, you only need to connect your power supply, turn the gamepad on, and have fun. Before playing, don't forget to access the interface menu and map all the buttons and the joysticks. The display contrast, brightness, sound volume, and other settings can be adjusted with these small buttons. Okay, and now it's time to play some games. We also included a stand for the gamepad. This will be handy to rest the gamepad on a table. As we mentioned in the beginning, the gamepad can also be used for other things, like running a computer, to access the internet, watching movies, etc. You can use the external USB connector to connect a wireless keyboard and mouse. And that's it, you guys. We hope you like it and have fun with it. Feel free to leave your comments below. We will see you guys next time. Bye!